What if they, just go out of business? Like say, I don't
Yeah.
know, a termite company just ghost you.
Why you got to be that way? Donna knows I just had that happen. She's gotta just grate me one time.
It was there. I had to go with it.
I see that.
Yeah.
Help me with hip hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patience. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip hop. Let's get it right.
All right, Donna, today we're going to be talking about BAAs, breaches, and the art of covering your assets.
You were
It's all about
excited
the
about
pause.
getting to do that, weren't you?
It's all about the pause. So you've had a recent happening where somebody asked you to sign a business associate agreement, and that sparked the entire conversation for today, really. Some of the things you're seeing, anecdotal evidence that things that we talk about actually happen.
Yeah, as I mentioned frequently, I don't have to make it up. It just happens. Happens to us, a client somewhere in the news. But for the most part, most people, some people treat BAAs like they're just paperwork.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And just sign it. That's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
That attitude should be going the way of the dodo. I'm just saying.
You'd hope so. Well, I mean, you are dodo if you are continuing having that attitude for sure, because it is a contract in and of itself. And I would say there's not a lot of folks that really look at these things, at least not the way they should, because even though some people might review it, oftentimes people don't know that you don't have to agree with everything that's in it. There are some things that you do have to agree to, but there are other things that you can negotiate.
Yes, the HIPAA law requires certain elements. And used to, they just had those elements and nothing else. Well, we don't live in that world anymore. We live in the world of very severe data breaches and supply chain issues and change healthcare and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a whole new world, and we've been seeing these things and recommending and discussing these things before. And again, as in the last few episodes, not legal advice. No. But it's certainly something you should be looking for to get legal advice. And we're really starting to see these, and they're tiny little changes for most people. But I think most people treat it like the terms and conditions when you create an account. Boom, boom, boom. Don't even read them. I actually go read them.
Next. Yeah. I mean, at least with technology nowadays, at least copy the terms and conditions, paste it into your favorite AI tool, and ask questions about it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes it so much easier than when I used to have to read them.
Yeah.
Actually read them. Okay, that one I know what it's saying. But BAAs are not, they should not be treated that way. You shouldn't treat those terms and conditions that way. You often can't create an account unless you agree to them. So people are like, well, it doesn't matter. But you got to know what you're getting yourself into. And more importantly, what you're letting them do when you create an account. Well, the BAA is way more than that, because it's saying, this is what my company will do, and your company is going to do that. And if I don't do these things can happen. I mean, just tons of different scenarios are covered in there, even just the basics. And most people assume it's still just the basics, and it is not. So, so somebody comes and says, hey, will you sign our agreement? And, we always talk about whoever company is the bigger company is going to win. And I'm very rarely the bigger company than somebody else. So, so what we, we send ours out. It's got standard language that I prefer to see, but I already understand that I may need to do that, and so I know to read them and what I'm looking for. And it's pretty standard language. It's way long, a lot of legalese in this one, a lot longer than uh, I right away when it's really short, you're in trouble because it ain't got everything in it. And when it's really
Yeah.
long, you're in trouble because there's a lot of stuff you should be paying attention to in it.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, all of it, but there was some language that brought some things to my attention. And, one of these issues has to do with a security incident definition. And we've talked about this for years.
Oh yeah.
This whole thing of pings and scans. I mean, I don't think people understand how much that happens.
Mm-mm,
I
they
mean, is there, if you could read
You know,
firewall logs,
yeah. I think just once I want to sign it the way it is, and then I want to literally send them the logs of every single ping and security incident they have. It would take. I doubt it would take more than a day before they're like, no, we're not doing this. This is
Yeah.
crazy.
So, there's that's always been there. And before it was just, you're going to notify us about these.
Hmm.
Okay. Unsuccessful. So, anyway, the language varies, but for the most part, we see now that you stipulate that all that noise, because HIPAA's definition says the noise means I got to notify you. And so to make the contract nice and tight so that you're not leaving some big gaping hole, there's a stipulation that says, okay, don't start sending us all that stuff. We all agree that that's just crap.
Hmm.
So that being said, if there is no definition of the security incident, the language defaults to the definition in HIPAA, which then leaves that big gaping hole. So there was some new stuff that you always expect to see. You've got to notify me about a breach, right?
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
supposed to be there with certain information required. So that language was fine, expected it. But here are a couple of pieces in this one paragraph that caught my attention, and it was business associates shall immediately, but in no case longer than 5 business days following discovery, notify covered entity of any actual or suspected security incident or breach of unsecured PHI. Well, there's no definition, and so that means I would have to prove that all these scans and things are happening, but I don't suspect it to be a problem. But are you saying that, that technically meets the definition of a security incident? So there you go. So I knew right away I needed to get the definition in there somewhere or the stipulation about that. But it goes through all the normal what you got to tell us when you have one. And then it says, in addition, business associate, BA shall provide any additional information reasonably requested by covered entity for purposes of investigating a breach of unsecured PHI. I think that's a good thing that should be in there because people are like, well, the contract says all I got to do is give you this. And so I think that's some good language. I like that language in there. Make a note of it for future reference. Might put it in mine. But it's the, I would say, I would add to it timely in there somewhere. So you can't drag your feet on getting it. You got to do it timely. because, oh, well, yeah, I got to do it, but you didn't say when. You got to
Yeah.
treat
I
this
think I'd
like
go.
you're signing an agreement with a teenager, right?
Yeah. I think I'd go back to the immediately, but not less than 5 days.
And then it goes into the date discovery, and then came the one where I have been expecting to see this. I'm not surprised that I've seen it. I was like, I know I'm going to see one out in the wild because I've heard discussions of it in group discussions of it being a clause. Here's one I actually received that had this language. Covered entity shall have the sole right to determine with respect to a breach whether notice is to be provided to individuals, regulators, law enforcement agencies, consumer reporting agencies, media outlets, and or the Department of Health and Human Services or others as required by law or regulation in covered entities' discretion. You don't make any notifications to anybody. You don't get to decide whether or not it's going to be there. Or it also then follows with, and we get to decide what the content of the notice is and any type of remediation that may be offered to the individuals and the nature and extent of any such remediation. So we get to decide. If you're notifying our patients, we get to decide everything. Does it require the notification?
Yeah.
If it does, what are we saying? What are we offering?
Yeah. I mean, this kind of goes back to what I've always said, which is, are you sure you want your business associate to notify?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to have them responsible for it as far as payment. It's a different thing if you're like, no, you need to send the letters out and you need to do it. I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's the thing that if this language isn't in there, then you're saying that you expect the business associate to make the right decision for your business.
Right. Yeah.
And many business associates don't even have access to someone like us, or even have attorneys that can make those decisions. There's a lot of things that could become a problem. Well, with that language in there, you don't get to say this does not require notification. I do. Which it also then adds the provision of the notices to affected individuals and any remediation the covered entity determines is required or reasonably necessary shall be at business associate's sole cost and expense.
Okay. I see a problem with that, but you're going to address it in a minute. So I'm not jumping there.
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, I just asked for a couple of changes.
Right.
For me to sign it, this is all it needs, But the more you think about it and the more you look at it, which is later today, here I'm like, I got to do podcast show notes, and I've been thinking about this all day, so let's do this. But all I wanted was for them to remove that section that said that last sentence and create 2 brand new paragraphs. That is responsibility for notification. The business associate shall be responsible for the cost of providing notices under applicable law to the extent the breach is reasonably determined to have resulted from acts or omissions of business associate or its subcontractors or agents. So I don't mind about I think that's fair. If it's my fault, I should pay for the notifications because those can be expensive. But I need it to say that it has been reasonably determined that someone in this downstream is responsible. And then it's up to me to make sure that happens. But the way it's worded, it's basically like anybody can have a breach.
Yeah, you're going to pay for it regardless of whose fault it is.
So I'm like, okay, first of all, let's, agree. And I'm not saying you have to prove it was me. It just has to be reasonably determined. that I did
Mm-hmm.
something wrong. And sometimes people will be like, if there's a failure to meet HIPAA obligations, then I'm like, who's going to decide if you're compliant? We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
So was it, a failure from acts or omissions of me or whatever, something, and the lawyers are going to make whatever they want to make. So I give it to the lawyers and say, I want it something like this. And then they say, here's what it's going to be. And then I wanted to add one additional paragraph that defines the security incident stipulation that just says, for purposes of this agreement, routine activities such as pings, port scans, internet background traffic does not constitute a security incident requiring notification. Blah, 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 blah. And then it says, there has to be an unauthorized access, use, disclosure, modification, or destruction of PHI. It's going in there to say something has to happen.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I wanted. So
Yeah.
that would be great, right? And but there are a lot of things that are in standard BAAs that people don't realize based on just those changes I made. So you've got to pay attention. And here are I think I stopped at 6. I could probably keep coming up with some. The things, and I think I would assume that one of them, at least the first two, you're right there with me. I don't know about the next one. I don't know which one. You tell me which one it is that the indemnification clauses, they're always very broad. So you need to if you're going to leave it broad, you're setting yourself up.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't want to pay for a data breach that I didn't cause in any way. It's just, we had a data breach and you're the IT company, so you're going to pay for it. Like, no.
It was your fault. You didn't stop me from clicking.
Yeah. I mean, any data breach we've ever had, it's always 100% of the time been on the client side. They did something they shouldn't have done. They let somebody in, they gave out credentials, whatever. I mean, we've been able to either stop the attack or limit the boom radius.
The blast.
But yeah. But it's always been that. Not to say it can't happen on our side, but so far, knock on wood, it's not been.
Or at least simulated wood of your desk, right?
Yeah, whatever this stuff is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean that's the key though, is make sure, because those indemnifications, if you don't have one of those in your BAA, you better have one soon. I mean,
yeah.
If you're doing downstream, that's protecting you, right? And we'll get to that downstream thing in just a second. And then, of course, the security incident language, because basically you're in a constant state of breach of contract, at least technically. And then if anything goes wrong and somebody says, well, you failed to do this, now the lawyers are going to have to argue that point, and that's going to get expensive.
Yeah. This is exactly the problem I had with, I believe it was Barracuda Networks. When I engaged them years ago, they didn't want to change the BAA, because whatever, 40,000 other MSPs signed it without a problem, but I'm the troublemaker. So,
of course.
But I mean, I even went to OCR about it and was like, what is your feedback on this? And they basically said what you just said, which is they're going to be in a constant state of breach of their own contract. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay.
Now, we do have OCR guidance that says it's reasonable to say that those things don't meet the level of a security incident. But we're talking a legal contract here. We're not talking guidance. Guidance isn't going to do anything when you signed a contract. Mm-hmm. So, you got it all documented out the wazoo. And, I remember how we discussed all the documentation and, put it in a safe in case something happens, so that you can prove you asked them and that's what they said. So If I'm in a constant state of breach, then that means the termination clause kicks in.
Yeah.
And most people don't read the termination clause. You know, even the people, the covered entities will say, okay, you've got to make sure you have your onboarding and offboarding, your arrivals and departures, just like employees, you got to have that with vendors and contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what? Okay, pull your BAA, and there's a termination section. In the termination section, this is what you are supposed to do. And there's always going to be some of the standard language says when the BAA, when your services are terminated, our agreement's terminated, to terminate the BAA, you have to destroy, tell me you have destroyed, or you have to keep. If you can't destroy for some reason, and there's tons of reasons I can tell you, that you can't destroy it. It's buried in with your other client's data. And with AI, it's buried in an LLM somewhere.
That's scary.
I know, right? So basically, what the termination says is you have to tell me that either you've destroyed it or I can't destroy it. Here's why. And I am committed to maintaining the protections required in this BAA for perpetuity as long as I have that data, which is, at the rate of digital hoarding that we have going on. And now you throw AI in. I don't know. I throw up my hands.
Yeah. Good thing we're building those data centers at the moon.
No, right. So with that in mind, I now go to my termination clause and say, like, if they don't want to add these things so that I have that and I'm going to be in, constant breach, what does the termination clause say? Because it always says you can terminate the BAA if you're if you're breaching the terms, a material, what is it? It says the language that was in this particular one, termination for breach says, covered entity party may terminate this agreement if it determines that the business associate has breached a material term of this agreement. Covered entity may choose to provide business associate with notice of an existing or alleged material breach and afford an opportunity to cure it. Most of the time it says you're going to give me 30 days to fix it. This one says, as soon as I decide, I don't have to give you 30 days. I could choose to give you time. That's an important difference right there. And then was the really big difference. Covered entity may immediately thereafter terminate this agreement and report the breaching party to the secretary. Meaning,
Ouch.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's a tough one. I'm not gonna breach it, and I'm being careful to make sure that I know we're doing the things that are in there. And there's plenty of loopholes that everybody, but if it says I'm doing something, I'm going to make sure I'm doing that. Which is why, like you, it's like, I don't want to report every day.
No, I don't.
And you don't want me to. So, and I tell you, anybody that doesn't understand, and you're not understanding why we care about this, have someone that your IT folks, somebody, and have them tomorrow morning. You go in and you tell them, at noon, I want you to give me a report of all the activity hitting our firewall that are scans, pings, not us, but coming from external sources aimed at our firewall that, are not normal traffic. I want you to tell me all the ones that we've had by lunchtime. If you want to be brave, go to the end of the day. Lunchtime ought to be clear. Unless you got a brand new IP, maybe. But
Yeah, only for about 5 minutes.
yeah, but people will follow that traffic, and so it's out there. So I would take it a step further in this, because one of the things that people don't realize is it's saying I can terminate your services. Okay, well, David, how long are your contracts?
Typically 3 years.
Okay, so and they say if you want out, here's the termination. But the BAA says you got to let me out.
I'll let you out of the BAA, but not out of the contract.
Now you're talking, getting more lawyers involved, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So I would want to have, some language. If you're going to put that in there and realize that you're going to actually have to, that's clearly above and beyond the basic standard language on termination.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they should add 2 more. When I really was thinking about what to put in here, is termination for breach of the business associate agreement should say, in the event of a material breach, something, all the legal, that we can terminate the agreement and any related services agreement without penalty or further payment obligation, except for what, we've already done or we've accepted, all that stuff about, you got to pay me for accelerated payment or termination fees shall not apply if this is why we're ending.
Yeah. It's like our standard contract, even outside the BAA, already kind of reads that way. If we have a material breach of the contract, then it states that very thing. Like, we can't charge you for the remainder of the contract and all that. You're free to go.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. So that should be in the BAA to make sure, because you're counting on people being like David and putting it in his contract.
But I do want them to match, even though one supersedes the other, it's a lot easier just to say, look, they both say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or look, this one already says it, so you can take it out of that one. The next piece, though, is something that I haven't really seen yet, but you and I have had many conversations about it, and it in the contract.
I think
you added it.
I think our contract, not the BAA, but I think our normal contract has this in it. I have to go look.
See, so you could 86 it out of the BAA and have it in there if they wanted to enforce the termination, because that's where it comes into play. Is you putting all these things in here that says you can terminate. If you're going to ever use it, what's going to happen?
Yeah. This is an important one because and what it is this transition assistance upon termination. So basically, if we're going to terminate this agreement, you got to play nice. And you got to help me get out of this thing, because, the whole thing about MSPs is we do a lot of stuff that makes us quote unquote sticky to the client. We're interwoven in everything, all the way down to the phone systems, internet service. Sometimes, it's like everything technology related. So you can't easily get away from an MSP, which sometimes that's kind of the business model, but other times that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it is not something an MSP should do to strong arm you into staying or make it difficult for you to leave. That, to me, that's something that shouldn't happen. That's an integrity issue. If somebody needs to leave, or they've breached the contract, you've breached the contract, whatever, and they need to go, then you should help them do that.
Mm-hmm. And it's just the right thing to do. We've always had that policy, and I remember the days when people would call and try to trick you into doing something, and you'd be like, I've had to say before, are you going to a new vendor? Why don't you just tell me that and we'll help you, you know?
Yeah. So
It's
maybe I don't want you anyway.
maybe we'll be excited. I don't know. And there's been plenty of times I'm not going to behave that way, you know?
Yeah.
And if your other vendor is expecting me to behave that way, you might want to ask them why they expect it. Because I'm fine with
Yeah.
helping you, but why do they expect me to be that way?
Yeah.
But
Well, because that's normal.
yeah,
I mean, when we take over clients from MSPs, it is almost exclusively, I'd say 10% of the time, the MSP is helpful. The other 90% of the time, they are not helpful at all.
yeah, but well, in healthcare, it should be a simple process because everything should already be documented and all they need to do is turn it over. And this is another reason you don't want to say, oh, all of my operational evidence my IT company has,
Yeah.
because you should have it. You're the one. What if they, just go out of business? Like say, I don't
Yeah.
know, a termite company just ghost you.
Why you got to be that way? Donna knows I just had that happen. just grate me one time.
It was there. I had to go with it.
I see that.
Yeah. But it can happen. Especially if it's a small company. I've seen companies, it was a data center years ago, and it was owned by a guy, and he got in a car accident and really had no succession plan. There was nothing.
Oof.
And it created so much havoc. And all these other IT folks had to jump in and kind of help them to, figure out what to do because nobody's paying the bills over there. Nobody knows what to do. So it can happen. And if you don't have those kinds of things documented already, how do you easily move it? So you're supposed to have it already. And what little things that you shouldn't already have, there might be a few from an infrastructure standpoint, like IP address schemes and those kind of things. You may not have all the details that IT folks would want to share. But it shouldn't be hard. If you're in healthcare doing what you're supposed to be doing, this is just another reason to make sure you have the proper documentation. There it is.
Yep. So I looked it up just to see if I was right.
Yeah.
So our terms of service, which was recently revised by Alex from the boot camp.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Yeah. So if anybody needs his contact information, reach out. He rewrote all of our stuff. So it's got a clause in here, and basically I just picked the one sentence there. Security First IT shall assist the client with the orderly termination of the managed services, including the timely transfer of such services to another designated provider.
There you go. See?
There you go. So,
you want that fully moved over, documentation, everything that's needed. So with that in mind, you want that kind of language in your BAA to make sure, because you can always take it out of a BAA and negotiating on the back end if it's in the service level agreement. But if you don't have those kinds of conditions built in, then where you're going to end up is, well, in the strange places that are very frustrating and upsetting and stressful. So
yeah,
there you go.
So I specifically wanted ours worded that way because oftentimes an MSP will say, I will transfer information over to you, Mr. Client. I am not dealing with anybody else, that you designate as far as an additional provider. In other words, I don't want to deal with another MSP on your behalf.
Yeah.
I would prefer to deal with the other MSP because we all talk the same language and we know what each other needs versus going through the client and causing more problems.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I make the offboarding as easy as the onboarding. And that's the way I like to do it.
Well, it's because you like to, do the right thing because you understand the importance of this it can destroy someone's business if it's
Yeah. And
not
then,
done properly.
and then next year when they realize they shouldn't have left, they'll come back.
That's the plan. That's the secret plan. But so we got those are the first three things. Make sure, one, that you understand the breach cost indemnification clauses. If they're really broad, is that leaving you wide open? Make sure that the security incident language is there so that that's not leaving things wide open. And you need to understand what the termination clauses say, because those are starting to really change as well. So all of those are, the first two have been changing, but now we're seeing it in the termination. So when you make sure that the security incident is defined, it stipulates the exclusion of all that noise, but you want somewhere that it's clearly defined and not just defaulting to hiccup. And that's the,
Or to HIPAA.
Yeah, a hiccup. Thank you. I was thinking about, well, never mind, but so first of all, if it has the language in there that just says you've got to report these things and nobody's touched it, then you're basically sitting there in a constant state of breach. What are you going to do? And then the way you solve that is you get it in the definition that you're stipulating, that there is a stipulation that internet noise, things we expect to see all the time, that aren't anything but people probing to see. Now you got somebody like really aimed at you that you're fighting off. Now that's different.
Yeah.
That's a targeted attack. Now that would be a security incident. Whether they get in or not, it's an unsuccessful one, but it's still one I want to know about. Because why are you being targeted?
Yeah.
There's so many layers to that. The other thing is make sure you understand your reporting requirements for security and incident and breaches, because especially now and moving forward. If you haven't already started paying attention to this, it's past time, because this has been going on for years. And everybody said, well, it's 60 days. No. If you don't say anything, there's the 60-day thing, but you are allowed to put whatever you want. And the other piece of it is, I may be subject to state laws that require reporting if it falls outside of HIPAA. So I've got a lot of other things to worry about. So a turnaround time of 3 to 5 days is what I would really consider a standard. I don't want to know within hours, because you're not going to really know anything.
No.
But anyway, I'm not going to be surprised that we start to see more of the language that says you got to let me know in 3 to 5 days, and then I get to make the final decision on whether notifications have to happen.
Yeah. I think the whole 60-day thing is definitely going to go away at some point. I don't know if they'll change the security rule for that, or if it'll just be, hey, we're going to follow something different, because we don't know what's going to happen with all that.
Yeah.
But we are not seeing any other frameworks that are going that length anymore. It's all 30 days, 10 days, 3 to 5 days.
Yeah.
It's nothing anywhere near 60 days.
Yeah. And so if you are a business associate, what you need to be prepared to provide and have the documents are exactly the documents you should be creating anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And your policies and procedures should have you creating them anyway. Here are the facts. What we know internally, anything that lets us try to figure out if it's a security incident or a data breach. If we think that PHI was involved, is there an exclusion that applies? If not, do your 4-factor, low pro co, document everything as if it's internal, and then send it to your covered entity. Now, I would say, hey, we've got this incident going on, and have a plan for a method to notify all clients Even Change Healthcare should have done this. Find a way
Yeah.
to notify everybody we've got something going on as soon as possible. You don't want to wait. We've got something going on. We're trying to figure out what's going on. But the hardest part of the whole thing that most people overlook is the flow down clause. Because all the BAAs are required to do this, have some language that tells you must have your downstream subcontractors and agents sign BAAs and commit. And it's usually going to say something like they need to agree in writing to comply with the same restrictions and conditions that apply to the business associate under this agreement. Or the one that's even more specific, and I see it all the time, is execute a written agreement that imposes obligations on the subcontractor that are at least as stringent as those imposed under this agreement.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Which is difficult to do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Google and Microsoft are going to put obligations on you.
No.
Yeah.
No. So, you got to start having conversations with clients about this, because go back to constant state of breach.
Yeah.
Yep. And the termination options and what that backs you into. And you're really looking at a big legal mess if you aren't truly aware of what the terms of these contracts are now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would actually start asking.
Just sign it.
Just
sign it.
But I would start asking vendors, when you're reviewing these with downstream vendors, and just say, what do you plan on doing to keep me from being in constant, this is what my contract says with my clients, and you're not going to do that or sign something that is at least as stringent as what this is, because you're telling me you're going to let me know in 30 days. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, I've got a problem. So you got to start having these conversations, and it don't matter, granted, it's not like you can call up somebody at Microsoft or Google and go, sup, I want to know about.
You can call them up. I get numbers pop up on my screen all the time with their number.
Call your mom, get that number from her.
But for some reason, them and Zuckerberg's always trying to get in touch with my parents.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I can get a support rep on the phone. Be happy to help me for $10,000. So, it's true what said. So what I'm saying is, whatever side of these contracts you're on, you've got to start reading them and knowing what you're committing to and understanding how that impacts your ability to provide services and sign other contracts with other vendors, and have those conversations, because what are you going to do? Yeah. So one of the things I would probably do on the Google Microsoft thing. So like you sell to the clients Microsoft services, right? The 365, right? And so you get a BAA from them that is not meeting the stringency that is in this one, because you can't tell them what to do. So as part of your contract with the client is to say, this will be an exception to this clause in the BAA because nobody tells them what to do. Some lawyer needs to give you that language. Call up Alex. Hook us up with that language, bro. And he's going to be going. But bro, help us. Anyway, so this is just this one that I was reading today. It just made me realize where we've said, and this always happens, we see these things coming before they're really everywhere. We know they're coming. And now we're seeing the thing that we've been saying is coming. It's there. So you've got to read what you have and make sure you understand it, and then start tracking them if they have different requirements than what your standard policies are. Because technically, your standard policies should match your most stringent BAA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that brings us to one other topic as we wrap up, which is the most recent enforcement action. Well, resolution agreement from OCR that happened, I think it happened last week as we were recording. So
Yeah, it did.
we had too many other things to talk about.
Yeah.
But so let's go over this one real quick. It's a lot of the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sad to say, but we're just saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure OCR is probably going, well, we're seeing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. But, well, it is the first one that has the official OCR director, Paula M. Stannard quote.
Yeah, it is. And I would say that her quotes are comprehensive.
We're going to go with that. Go ahead. Hit it. They have not been.
She says, she says, identifying potential risks and vulnerabilities to EPHI is a key step in preventing or mitigating breaches of PHI. An accurate and thorough HIPAA risk assessment, or analysis as she says it, can minimize the exposure of EPHI from both malicious actors and inadvertent errors. Based on OCR's experience enforcing potential HIPAA security rule violations, the covered entity or business associate under investigation will often have deficient risk analysis practices. Yes, you are right. Common deficiencies include lacking a risk analysis entirely or failing to update existing risk analyses when implementing new technologies or expanding operations that affect the security of EPHI.
That is pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. It is comprehensive. Like, not only did you screw up, but let me tell you how you screwed up.
Yeah, so this is yet another one that's about an SRA. And this one, you feel like, can you imagine being the person that figures these out, that what happened out? So, and it's one that OCR didn't have to really do a complicated investigation to see whether the allegations were true.
Yeah.
In May 2023, they received a complaint alleging that Deer Oaks, which is one of those big affiliated, they have like 14 different entities or something, impermissibly disclosed the EPHI of individuals, including patient names, dates of birth, yada yada, several things, by making patient discharge summaries publicly accessible online. So if you go here, you can see it. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they were like, yeah, we're seeing it. So OCR's investigation substantiated the allegations because all they did was, okay, let me go to that URL. Oh, look, there it is. It was substantiated right away. So according to them, here's what a coding error.
Can you define that?
That's a programmer screwed up. At least they didn't call it a glitch, which is what I hate. In a now discontinued pilot program for an online patient portal. So it was a pilot program and no one was paying attention.
I've seen those.
Yeah, it caused it to be exposed and cached by search engine providers. So they're really not paying attention to security issues in a test pilot program from December 2021 until May 2023.
Well, I mean, you got to get that product out there. You can come back to security later.
I knew I was setting you up for that one. David was, we'll use that in another episode somewhere. That yeah, because we're running out of time. But that one though, 35 individuals. This is a pilot program, but they did impermissibly disclose for a really long time. So clearly, there's no detection, monitoring, or anything happening. Nobody's testing and looking into these things, and so it's not looking good. And then they expanded the investigation. because these things do go
Uh-oh.
on. When in July 2024, Deer Oaks experienced a breach on August 29th, 2023. So in July 2024, they were like, we got to add that. So you got to wonder why it's an almost a year.
A while later, too.
Yeah. So almost a year. And, so there's a lot I got to questions. But so May is when they find out about the 35, and they are under investigation, and they're finding that. So imagine being the one to find, we're totally exposed. Then in August, end of August, which, by the way, near a holiday, like to point out, end of August, the network was breached due to a compromised account, exfiltrating data, demanding payment, but 171,871 affected individuals.
Mm.
Now, they did do their notice on it and everything. So, I don't know. But based on investigations into both incidents, they never conducted an accurate and thorough risk analysis. So, I don't know. Everybody says, the big guys can always do it. They can afford it. Well, why aren't they doing it? I don't know. But the bottom line is they're paying $225,000 and going on a 2-year corrective action plan. And neither are the things you want to do if those things happened to you. You want to be able to show, look, things happen. People make mistakes. But you definitely don't want something sitting out there for like 6 months or actually 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
A year and a half. And with that, and then get followed up with. So can you imagine that person?
And I have to wonder if the person that found the information online initially didn't reach out to them, because I've seen that before where they're like, but I've seen patients before reach out and say, hey, I just thought I'd let you know, like I found my information online. This needs to be resolved.
Yeah, we're not getting all the deets.
No, we're not. So, but I have seen it, unfortunately, where the patient says, hey, there's a problem, and it gets fixed, but it never gets actually reported, even though it was an impermissible use or disclosure.
Indeed. Yes, we do.
Oh, well.
And we've seen the ones where it gets reported and they say, you're lying, you're wrong. I'm not going to go there. Listen.
There's always differences. But anyway, that's our show for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us again next week. And we'll talk more about the craziness that happens in Donna's life. And remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.